It happened in the second inning, and by the time it was over, half of baseball was talking about it. Shohei Ohtani, the most even-keeled superstar in the sport, stood on the mound against the Minnesota Twins and made a decision no one expected. He stopped listening to his own catcher. Let's lay out what happened. Ohtani was pitching to Dalton Rushing, filling in while Will Smith recovers from a neck injury. In the second inning, the two got crossed up on a pitch call, and the mix-up led directly to a passed ball that let a run score. Then, just an at-bat later, Ohtani disagreed with a pitch call and signaled for an ABS challenge. Rushing visibly shook his head, clearly against it. Ohtani challenged anyway. He was right. The call was overturned. And from that point on, Ohtani simply took over, calling his own pitches for the rest of the game, freezing his catcher out of the process entirely. What did you think when you saw that happen? Honestly, I think most fans focused on the wrong thing. They saw Ohtani look frustrated on the mound and assumed it was just a bad night. But the real story isn't the pass ball, and it isn't even the blown call. It's that Ohtani, of all people, chose to publicly stop trusting his battery mate mid-game. This is a guy who almost never shows frustration. He plays the game loose, smiling, treating it like it's still fun even at the highest level. So when he is the one who visibly loses patience, that tells you the breakdown wasn't small. It tells you it had been building. And here's the number that makes it impossible to write off as one bad inning. With Smith catching this season, Ohtani has a 0.74 ERA over 10 starts. With Rushing behind the plate over his last 3 starts, that number balloons to 4.34. That's not bad luck. That's a real signal. From a catcher's perspective, this must have been brutal to sit through. Walk me through what that moment actually feels like for Rushing. This is the part people underestimate. Rushing isn't some rookie who doesn't understand the stakes. He's 25, in his first full season, and he's catching arguably the best pitcher alive. Imagine being crossed up with a guy like that in front of a national audience, watching the run score, and then, one batter later, having that same pitcher openly overrule you on a call, and be proven right. That's not just embarrassing. That's the kind of moment that can shake a young catcher's confidence for weeks. And it didn't end when the half-inning ended. Rushing could be seen in the dugout with Freeman, Dave Roberts, and pitching coach Mark Pryor, all gathered around him, clearly trying to talk him back into the game mentally. Think about what it means for a 25-year-old to need that kind of intervention, live, on camera, with the whole league watching. Rushing didn't hide from it afterward either. He came out and admitted flat out that he was in the moment, that he takes responsibility, and that it was hard to swallow needing that much support from his teammates. That's a mature response. But maturity doesn't undo what happened on the field. So is this really about one bad game, or is there something deeper going on with this pairing? That's the real question, and I don't think it's about one game. Ohtani has now made 3 starts with Rushing catching him, and all 3 have been rough by his standards. Compare that to 10 starts with Smith, where he was borderline untouchable. When the split is that extreme, 0.74 versus 4.34, you have to ask whether this is simply about chemistry, about a pitcher who has thrown almost exclusively to one personal catcher suddenly having to adjust to someone new mid-season. Here's what makes it more complicated. Roberts has said Ohtani is very particular about what he wants to throw, while most pitchers are more flexible, more willing to work with whatever their catcher calls. If that's true, then this was never going to be a simple transition. Rushing isn't just catching a great pitcher. He's catching one of the most exacting, detail-obsessed competitors in the sport, at a moment when Ohtani himself is dealing with a lingering knee issue and trying to protect a historically dominant season. So when you combine an uncomfortable new catching pairing with a superstar who is already managing his own physical limitations, of course the margin for error gets razor thin. One crossed-up sign, one contested call, and it boils over. What does this mean going forward, for both of them? For Ohtani, honestly, not much changes. He's still going to be one of the best pitchers on the planet, and the Dodgers are still built to make a run at a 3rd straight World Series. But for Rushing, this is a real inflection point. Roberts has said he, most likely, We'll keep catching Ohtani going forward, at least until Smith is fully healthy. That's not a vote of confidence so much as a lack of alternatives. The only other option on the roster is a backup catcher who barely plays. That puts Rushing in a strange spot. Every pitch he calls for Ohtani from here forward is going to be watched under a microscope. If there's another cross-up, another disagreement, it won't be read as a one-off anymore, it'll be read as a pattern. And in a Dodgers clubhouse that's chasing a three-peat, patience for growing pains has a shelf life. What I find most interesting, though, is what this says about Ohtani himself. We talk so much about his numbers, his MVP case, his historic two-way season, that we forget he's still human. He gets frustrated. He has limits on how much miscommunication he'll tolerate before he takes matters into his own hands. And when he does take over, calling his own game, overruling his catcher, it's not arrogance. It's a pitcher trying to protect a season that's shaping up to be one of the best in baseball history. So what should fans actually take away from this? I'd say two things. First, don't overreact to Rushing. He's young, he's talented, and he owned his mistakes immediately afterward. That matters. Players who take accountability in public usually come back stronger, not weaker. Second, don't underestimate how much this reveals about Ohtani's standards. This is a player who is otherwise almost impossible to rattle. The fact that he was rattled enough to take control mid-game tells you exactly how much precision he expects from everyone around him right now, at the exact moment his season, and his Cy Young and MVP case, are peaking. The real test isn't this one Twins game. It's what happens the next time Rushing is behind the plate for Ohtani. If they find their rhythm, this becomes a footnote in a historic year. If they don't, it becomes the storyline that follows the Dodgers all the way into October.